What's going on, my fellow Kino Lords? So tonight I'm going to be reviewing Heretic, which is the film that is co-directed and co-written by Scott Beck and Brian Woods. So first of all, huge apologies for being absent from the channel for basically 2 weeks. I was actually in Mexico City for about 9 days, but now I'm back, and I'm excited to be back because I really miss talking Kino with everybody, and I'm excited to talk about this movie. But also, I know that I haven't reviewed Honora, and I know that I haven't reviewed Memoir of a Snail yet. I promise to get to both of those movies next week. But for now, let's talk about Heretic. This is a movie that, from the trailer alone, I was really intrigued by. Religious horror is some of my favorite horror. I mean, so many different movies that I can name off the top of my head that I've really enjoyed. I mean, all the way like from the 70s with Ken Russell's The Devils, even till now with films like Saint Maud, and even Darren Aronofsky's Mother. I don't know, I just have a huge affection for these kinds of movies, mostly because the topic of religion itself has intrigued me and is honestly been a huge interest of mine for a very long time, as it is today. And you know, for that reason, you know, I was really intrigued by it, even though I feel like religious horror in the past few years has been a bit disappointing. You know, I always kind of have hope, or I should say I have some faith in the genre. But yeah, look, when it comes to Scott Beck and Brian Woods as screenwriters and directors, I haven't really seen anything from them. The only thing that I've seen from them is that they're credited as being the original story creators for A Quiet Place. And I like A Quiet Place, but that's all I could really go off of before going into this movie. And I gotta say, after watching Heretic, I think that these dudes are extremely talented, and I cannot wait to see more from them. Because this movie had me engaged from start to finish. I don't think there was any part of this movie that I felt dragged or I felt was boring. I felt constantly engaged with the material, constantly felt the suspense, excuse me. And I think, like, as directors and especially writers, they have a lot to offer. This film, conceptually speaking, feels like the monster child of a film like Martyrs and a film like Jigsaw, and I don't know, it's called just the Saw movies in general. And as I kind of mentioned, Darren Aronofsky's Mother. But I will say, as much as I really enjoy Darren Aronofsky's Mother, that movie, like, thematically speaking, is kind of goes in one direction the whole movie. But Heretic, thematically speaking, I feel like goes in various different directions, and I feel like has a lot to say about a lot of different things. I don't think this movie in any way is really gearing people to think in one particular way, and I think that's something that I really admire in a religious movie, period. Whether it's horror or just a faith-based movie or whatever it is, I like it when movies tackle the topic of religion in a nuanced way that doesn't feel like it's just kind of pandering to one side. And again, like, I'm somebody that's very non-religious, right? But I wouldn't want a movie to constantly pander to my beliefs. I want a movie that is kind of opening the conversation and really dive into this topic in a way that feels mature and well-versed. And I feel like Heretic accomplished that. And it's a movie that you kind of have to wait and see, you know, where it's going, how it explores these things. And I feel like ultimately I walked away from the film quite satisfied with the way it did explore its themes. First of all the performances in this movie, incredibly solid. I mean, obvious, Hugh Grant, so good in this movie. He's so natural, so cunning, and emotionally manipulative, and he just, I don't know, there's I mean, I haven't seen Hugh Grant in a lot of movies. As I was growing up, he kind of became popular from doing more like romantic comedy type stuff. But for the movies that I have seen him in, and especially in this one, he has a very organic way of acting. And that is especially the case with this movie. It just feels so natural to him, and he's just so sadistic, so twisted throughout the entire movie, and he's honestly a pretty terrifying villain. And he is just so great. Like, I loved his performance in this movie. Can't say enough nice things about it. But even besides him, like, the two main actresses in this movie, Sophie Thatcher plays one of the girls, and Chloe East, I think is the name of the other one. Both of them, honestly, really great performances. I think Sophie Thatcher's performance was a little bit more impressive, but overall, like, they both give really solid performances. They have to really kind of, the entire movie, act incredibly on edge and very panicked and in just this state of like emotional turmoil. And they just do, again, across the board, the acting in this movie is really great. I can't praise the acting enough. I think everybody did a really great job here. But what I really, really loved about this movie, again, this is a thematic, like in terms of the theme, it's purely foundational with religious themes. It's a film that it makes itself very clear right out of the gate that it really wants to tackle religion. And what I loved about it was that with Hugh Grant's character, at first, at least for me, I was a little bit unsure, because he's obviously like this huge skeptic, right? And in a lot of religious movies, sometimes they paint the skeptic, or not, really in any movie in general, the skeptic is kind of painted as like an asshole. And he's definitely an asshole in this movie, so I was kind of like, I wonder which route they're going with here. But what I love about it is that even though he is like this atheistic skeptic in the movie, and he's definitely an asshole, the position and the character that he plays in this movie also makes God himself look like an asshole, because he is like the puppet master in this movie. And the way that he is forcing these two characters and the way that he is making them challenge their beliefs, and the way that he is forcing them to choose out of their free will to do certain things in this very controlling way, you could draw a lot of correlations between him and religious depictions of God. And I think it's kind of brilliant the way that they were able to write his character as like two sides of the same coin. Like, in one way, again, he's this sadistic asshole skeptic, but in another way, he's also this sadistic asshole godlike character. And I liked the way they were able to flesh his character out in that way. Again, it felt very nuanced and very well written. You could tell that the writers knew exactly what they wanted to do with this movie, and exactly what they wanted to explore. And I liked, again, like, there's huge elements of this movie, regarding the value of faith, or the valueless elements of believing things that aren't true and just for your own comfort. And the way that this film kind of explores a lot of these things felt like it came from somebody who understands the subject, and felt complex, and didn't feel like it was just kind of, preaching to the choir, for lack of a better phrase. And I really enjoyed that about this movie. I really, really did. And then on the horror front, it delivers quite a bit, man. Like, this is a movie, and again, it's I can see some people who aren't that interested in the subject matter to feel like it has a slow pace, because it does take a while for like the actual like horror to begin in a more like conventional sense. But I love the way it's paced. And when it actually gets to the actual horrific stuff, like the more darker graphic stuff, I feel like it pays off a lot more. Like it feels like it packs much more of a punch because of how much it makes you wait for it. And once you finally get it, it's like, damn, there it is, and it feels rewarding. So yeah, I mean, look, what I will say about the movie is that I'm kind of on the fence about the final like 3 minutes of the movie. Like at first I thought like, damn, this is gonna be like a dark but poignant ending to the movie that wraps it up, not only, at least in my opinion, satisfying narratively, but thematically. I was like, this is something kind of powerful in a way. And then it does something kind of out of left field for the final, again, like 3 minutes. And it felt, I don't know, more along the lines of like traditional horror, like traditional survival horror. And I don't know, it felt a little bit like bow tie Hollywood kind of thing. And I was like, I don't know about that. But I don't know. I mean, overall, like, I think this is a really well-written movie, well-directed movie. The suspense building is great. I love the use of sound throughout the movie. And I think it's definitely worth watching. Like, this is a movie that I'm probably going to watch many more times. And yeah, again, I don't know if I want to talk much more about it because I don't want to, you know, spoil anything. But I do really enjoy the way that this film explored ideas about religion and facts about religion, because a lot of the things that Hugh Grant points out in this movie, very reasonable points. Very you know, and maybe I'm just biased because, again, I am also very skeptical and like anti-religious for the most part. But you know, even though he brings up a lot of very informative points about like the history of religion and bringing out board games as a way to like draw comparisons to different renditions of religions and how they all borrow from each other, and that's kind of, and then the way that he draws that correlation with music and other art forms, it was just like really, I really enjoyed the way that all that was written and the way that it was written for the character. But at the same time, like, I think it does also do a great job at writing the Mormon characters, you know, the faith-based characters, especially by the end of it, in a way that kind of, you know, again, it's not just catering to the whole skepticism side of things. There's an element of humanity to this movie that I think is important across everything. And I don't know, I think I should stop talking about it. But overall, like, I definitely recommend this movie. Definitely check it out. If I had to rate it, I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10. Solid 8 out of 10. Yeah, I just enjoyed a lot about it, guys. Like, I really did. Kind of surprising. Like, I knew that I'd probably like it, but not as much as I did. I think it's really, really great. Apologize if I'm a bit rusty talking about movies. It's been a long time. Or at least it feels like it's been a long time. But I think that's really all I got to say about it. Stay tuned for reviews for Anora and Memoir of a Snail. I'm really excited to watch and talk about those movies. But that's it, guys. That's all I got to say about Heretic. If you really enjoyed what I had to say about the films, give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.